Hi, I'm Dr. Kim Logan-Nowlin.
I'm Arthur Nolan.
And welcome to Making It Work. The topic of our program today is
Making a Catastrophe.
We want to welcome our guests today. We have Mr. Rodney Cooper of Canton, Michigan, and Mr. Steve Barber of Detroit, Michigan. Welcome to Making It Work.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, one of the things that I'm really interested in, and we've talked about it before, is issues dealing with African American men.
Yes.
You know, and some of the things that are taking place with our African American men is devastating. It appears that everywhere I go, that's a concern with everybody.
Yes.
You know, when we're talking about fathers not being in the home, African men being incarcerated, you know, consistently.
Yes.
Right now, I think the prison system is like 80% African American men. So you need to give us some solutions on how to deal with these issues.
I think sometimes when we talk about solutions, we have remedies and formulas that take place, but the ultimate solution is, I would believe, for our African American young men, is to seek God first. I believe that, seeking God first. And a lot of the times in our homes, I've talked with Steve a lot of the times about the gatekeeper. When the gatekeeper leaves the home, that means that he has allowed, the father has allowed his home to be left vacant without his presence or his input. And when the gatekeeper is away, the devil, Satan himself, enters into the home and just wreaks havoc throughout the entire home. So those are some of those things.
Right, and I agree with Rodney, because men, especially young men, will seek to mold or model themselves after something. You know, we see that. So when the father's not home, sometimes, or most times, they model after the mother that's in the household. And we wind up with, you know, something we want to look, you know, a little peculiar at. So after that, if not, then, you know, we have the rap, you know, aspect of
culture.
We have the hip hop culture. We have rappers. We have basketball stars. We have political figures. All these people that are almost pushed in front of them to say, "You need to be like this man. You need to be like that man." But the man that God put there for them to model in the first place, being their father, is not there.
I want to take it back a minute. I hear you talking about the responsibility to young men having God in their lives. Can you tell us who you are, your history and your background, and what, you know, what empowers you to be able to talk about this and with such passion?
Well, I think sometimes when you are brought forth, when you all came to me to actually do this type of program, I think you have to have some sort of experience in that. And we just did a program at our church last week on blended families, and I have a lot of experience in that over the past 13 years. So being a father and being the second father to some young man, and actually in that situation was a daughter, I found myself having to find solutions, as Arthur talked about, and being able to make decisions for my household, and then who to seek when I'm making those decisions. Instead of trying to make them on my own, I needed to seek the Lord. So I just do that most of the time.
Okay, but Rodney, you have a company.
Yes, I do.
And why did you start this company? What's the name of your company?
The name of the company is the Cooper Agency, and we do, for the Detroit Public Schools and surrounding areas, intervention programs.
Okay.
What are those intervention programs? We deal with conflict resolution, cultural competency. When you're talking about cultural competency, our teachers in the educational arena don't necessarily know how to deal with, as they call it, the urban child. So the Cooper Agency goes in and trains teachers on how to make connections. I think that's the biggest thing, making connections. Our students aren't failing standardized tests because they can't get the work. They're failing because the teachers are not making connections with students. And when you're able to make connections with students, I think students see through all of that, and they begin to connect with you too, and there enables them to learn. So I've been doing that now for probably the last year and a half now with the situation that happened.
Yeah, and I understand that perspective, you know, but still we also deal with not only them not making the connection, we deal with them not wanting to make a connection, you know, because it's at a point now, I think a lot of teachers are frustrated when we're talking about dealing with young African American males, and especially if they don't have some stability in the household. We deal with a lot of issues where they really have a hard time addressing those issues. And it may be because of some medical reasons like ADHD. Instead of saying that they need to be medicated, can we really have them evaluated to determine if they have ADHD or if they don't?
I continue to talk with educators and principals throughout this region, and it is not the children, Arthur and Kim, it's not the children. They are going to learn. These children have been learning historically for the past 40 or 50 years. They've been the same child. Now we can say that they've changed differently, but have our methods changed? So I think that we as educators and as we as adults need to revamp how it is that we are presenting ourselves to our students so that they'll be able to learn. And that also helps me as a parent and this entire ball of wax when we talk about the educational system.
All right, Steve Barber, tell us your background, and also, you know, you are our men's ministry leader for the Lake Region Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Can you tell us about your background and your history?
My background is almost identical of probably 80% of some of your viewers are going to be watching, which is I grew up with a father not in the home. And my mentorship was really lacking, you know, in the beginning. I wasn't a troubled child, but I was a withdrawn child. You know, I did not know how to respond to men. I did not know how to get in there and, you know, talk about basketball, talk about sports, talk about man things. I would always be in the background holding up a wall, afraid to talk to a young lady, afraid to approach the boy, you know, the fellas, and just shoot the proverbial, you know, words. Right. And, you know, it hindered me. But I had a lot of mentors, strong mentors, that actually decided they wanted to take me under their wing. One of them being William Slayton. Great man here. He's an older man, and he would always see me. If he saw me leaning up against the wall, he would always come up, pull me up off the wall with his words, you know, just talk to me until I was standing up straight. He's like, man, go talk to one of these pretty young girls up in here. And I'm like, man, I don't know how to do it. Just walk up and say something. And that's really all it took, was to walk up and say something.
So social skills.
Exactly.
That's important.
Exactly. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have somebody there to teach me how to do that.
Okay, let me stop you there. You know, Arthur, when we talk about social skills and we talk about interaction with young men, we don't have these kind of programs in our church. You know, we don't see these kind of mentorship programs in our church. Why don't we have these type of programs in our church where we can teach social skills and prepare them for, you know, the rite of passage? Why is that missing in our church?
I think it's important when you think about it, Kim, is that a lot of times we don't have the people in place that are capable of really demonstrating the mentoringship. And then we're talking about also a time factor that's involved. A lot of people put church programs on the back burner. And they don't feel that. They feel that maybe possibly they go to church once a week to deal with whatever issue they deal with, and when they go home, that's it. That's it. But when you're talking about mentorship, you're talking about it 24/7. You know, I mean, you may not have to deal with that child in that particular time frame, but you're talking about being available. You know, especially when we're dealing with crisis. So that's really important. And what you do as far as bringing the church together to address issues. That's good. It needs to be done, you know, by the males and not just by the females, because a lot of our programs in the church today are headed by females.
I'm glad you said that too, because when you say the males, you know, you chose that word so correctly, because there's a difference between male, boy, and man. You know, and male is just a child comes out of the womb and the doctor says it's a male child because of his gender specificity. specificity. He becomes a boy when he starts challenging things. He becomes a manhood when he's secure in these things. People name you a man. You can't name yourself a man. People identify with you as being a man. That's a good man. You know, right there. That's a good man over there. But if they look at you, okay, you still have some growing to do. It's a culture thing. In Africa, you know, when they had the boys become men through their rites of passage, all the men laid hands on them and acknowledged them to be men. We don't do that nowadays. We say you're 21, you're a man. You know, the father leaves the home. They put this incredible pressure on boys to say, you're the man of the house now. He doesn't know what it's like. He doesn't know what he's going to be going through. So now that gatekeeper is going, he has to make up or adopt anything that he can perceive to be a man.
And where do they adopt it from? Let's be specific. They adopt it from the media, from TV, from videos, and which can create a major problem. I'm not saying all programs, the television programs are bad, but a lot of the things that our youth adopt, you know, seems to be questionable. Would you agree or disagree?
I totally agree with that. What we've failed to do when you talked of mentoring, the elongated the process where we begin to talk to them about what it is that they need to do, we don't follow up with that situation. So if it's a program, if it's a whatever the 12-step or 12-week program, we do those, and then on week 13, we don't hear or see any more from that. We don't, I'm trying to think of the word, what happens in the long period of time. Should I check back with you in 6 months? The follow-up surely with that, so that we can have some type of follow-through and some feedback on how you're doing. We don't do that. We kind of leave you all, if this is a rites of passage, now that you're through, now that you've made it in through this rites of passage, that usually is it for the mentoring, and mentoring is a long-term situation. So.
When you mention rites of passage, I'm really, I guess I'm motivated to think that we can implement a program like that in our churches today, because some churches are doing it. A lot of churches are not doing it. And it's only because I seriously believe that they don't hold it as being important, you know, and that's a good and powerful program. When you're dealing with a young child that's crossing over into a particular age, and you're providing him with some type of support and to let him know what options are available to him.
That's right. Yes. Also, another aspect that I've come to learn, because I've been doing men's ministry for 20 plus years, and it's a science that really needs, or a ministry that really needs more ministry. The answer to it is simple: it's Christ. It's Jesus Christ. You look at that example; He's all the man you need, all the man you need to be.
Following His steps.
Exactly, exactly. But what we're dealing with, especially with men in leadership, or what we want to say males in leadership, sometimes we're dealing with hurt individuals. Sometimes we're dealing with people with great power, great responsibility, and great authority, but does not have that approval of the community that lay their hands on them and say, you are now a man. So what they're doing is they're winging it. And it was okay for me, so why not let it be okay for the rest of the men? Or let it not be okay for the rest of the boys? So we have people, it's a disconnect to show the importance of acknowledging our young men to be men, but also our grown men to be men. I think that if we even go after the grown men and say that we acknowledge you as a man, that would relieve a whole lot of things. Marriages will be saved. Children would be would have, you know, the fathers back in the home. It would be so much going on. A father doesn't have to have a divorce or get kicked out of the home not to be there.
That's right.
You know, he can be spiritually disconnected. He can be emotionally disconnected. He can just be a body there. And that's why we have this thing. We were talking earlier about the second commandment, on how the iniquity follows the fathers and follows the children into the third and fourth generation.
That's right.
That's something else that we need to look at. We really need to look at it. And I have been thoroughly convinced that men need to adopt a new name, and that is curse breakers, because men need to acknowledge what it is that's generational curses in our past, something that we probably didn't have anything to do with.
That's powerful, though, you know, when you're talking about curse breakers.
Yes.
You know, that's really powerful, and that's something to consider. But I want to go back to something that you said earlier, you know, and that was in regards to females raising male children. I've seen where females have been successful in raising male children. So, I mean, when I think about it, there are certain values that anybody can have to implement in a child's rearing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if a female may not have the male present in the home, but if she demonstrates the good values, the good character, and if she's also wise enough to recognize that she may need support, I say that they can be raised to be really
great,
powerful and studious in all those areas where it's going to be a successful child.
Dr. Ben Carson is the perfect example. He was raised by his mother, and he's a phenomenal person. But the thing is, if God puts man and woman together and name that very good,
absolutely,
who are we to say what is very good? What could Ben Carson have been if his father had been there? We want to give the acknowledgement of not the completion, but the raising and the rearing of the children by single parents, whether fathers or mothers, positive role models in the family. I give all credit to my mother. Amen. I applaud you. I give all credit to my father. Amen. I applaud you. But what would it have been if God had have been in the center and the husband and wife cohesion, would have been there? How much more?
How long, you say I give credit to my father. Well, how long did it take you to give credit to your father? Because he was out of the home.
My father? Oh, wow. It took years.
Yeah.
It took years. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I think she turned 2 before the process of forgiving him was complete. Because he didn't want... He walked away when I was 4. The divorce was final when I was 7. It took a lot longer back then to get a divorce. So I didn't know it. I was hurting. I was really hurting in that situation. When he would want to come by and pick us up, but he never did. I remember one time he came by. We wanted him to get a Mother's Day gift for our mom. He went out. We bought her a nice watch. Came back and presented it to her for Happy Mother's Day. Years later, my mother told me, I gave him the money for that watch, so you wouldn't be disappointed on him not buying something for you. He had no money.
Today's society, you find that women are stepping up to the plate. They have to. Because the men are in prison, they're not in the forefront. However, there are a lot of good mothers raising these sons, and like he said, Ben Carson is a prime example, and there are many, many more. But at the same time, we do need our fathers or our mentorship programs, our pastors, good men, kind-hearted men, sensitive men, to be able to see, if you see a void, to be able to step up and say, fill that void. I shouldn't have to have someone to come up or some special program to tell me there's a void here. I see this child every week. I need to fill that void. Go to that mother and say, what can I do? Doesn't the Bible say that we are to take care of those who are widowed and those
widows and the fatherless?
Yes, and the fatherless. That's the word of God. So what are we sitting back waiting for? What are we sitting back waiting for, gentlemen?
Well, like I said before, a lot of times, I'm sorry, Cooper, we're dealing with hurt individuals again. What's to say that the mother has not been hurt by Leroy Jenkins, just to say a name, and she is repulsed or angry at all men.
Bitter.
At all men. So when I want to come and say, hey, let me show you how to tie a tie. I can show them how to tie a tie. I can do this. We did a program at our church for AY, and a woman said, I raised my son. He's a good man, and I acknowledge him. He doesn't need a father.
Wow.
And I said, well, every man needs a father. I said, a man cannot raise a daughter by himself, and she be complete. So a woman cannot raise a son by herself and he be complete.
Wow.
She knows how to show him how to give love. But the woman's job, the wife's job, a mother's job, is to show the son by observance how to receive love from the husband.
So if you had not begun your healing, your daughter was 2 years old, you have a son now, you have a male child. Is your father in his life, and are you and your father, in a relationship now where, this curse can be broken?
Okay. Well, my father has died. My father passed when my daughter was about 3 years old.
So
he had multiple myeloma. He never saw her, but I had begun the process when my wife was pregnant with her to actually heal that. He was down in Florida, and I was up here, and he wanted to. He didn't reach out to me. I reached out to him. I said, somebody has to do, more. Somebody has to be the bigger person, and not to be vain about it a little bit. But I called him, and I had a 2-hour conversation with him on my cell phone in the car.
Wow.
Not about I want to forgive you, I want to talk. Well, we just talked. We just talked about anything, the weather down in Florida, how things are going up here. Oh, you're going to be a grandfather again. This, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. But we talked for 2 hours. After that, I felt so much more comfortable that I was able to videotape my daughter. Midnight feedings, her learning to crawl, just looking around, eyes wide open. And I would send him the videotapes. That made his day. Oh. That made his day. He would call back almost crying because he's like, she's so beautiful. She's so this. She needs to know her grandfather. I said, yeah, I agree with it. We're trying to get down there, Dad. Things are a little tight here. We're trying to do it. And I would just send him videotapes. When the Pistons won the championship, I sent him a baseball cap and T-shirt. He was in the hospital having a cancer treatment. He said that brightened him up. As soon as he saw that, he put the hat on. He had his wife put the shirt on him because he didn't have the strength to do it, and he just sat there grinning.
Rodney, what I need to do is to go back to what we discussed earlier.
Sure.
Solutions. What kind of solutions can we come up with?
We've got to be willing when you talk of mentoring programs, and we've got to be available. A solution is being available. You talk of leadership roles, those that are in leadership positions within the church, the solution is stepping up and stepping out and becoming very transparent. Availing yourself to say, I know what you've gone through, and I am going to step up and make a connection with you so that I can begin mentoring you. And what mentoring means, and the word I was looking for was the sustainability. We've got to be able to see the sustainability when I talk with you in 5 years, and that's the greater reward. So the solution is surely seek God, and I mean really earnestly seek God. And one of the next things is to make yourself available. We've become so distracted with worldly things that right in our churches, right up under our noses, our children are turning to the world instead of turning to men of God or even ladies, women of God, to actually see what we can do. And the one thing that Steve talked about that I wanted to piggyback on, what is happening with us is we can't find solutions because we are harboring what has taken place. We have not recognized or made the acknowledgement that, okay, that did happen to me, that did happen, but I need to now make the connection with the Lord and say, Lord, help me with this as I move forward in raising that child. I would have to disagree with you. A woman can raise a child by herself with God, though. And a father can raise a daughter with God, but he has to, we talked in my sermon at this past week of let that go. Connect with God, and he knows what's going on with your situation, and allow me to move forward. Give me the ability to raise this situation. So availability, seeking God. Those are two solutions that I could say right now with doing that.
How many times do we have to make ourselves available? We're parents, and no matter how old our children become, we have to still make ourselves available to them. We have to make ourselves available as parents in this relationship so that they have a firm foundation. And children need that. Children need to see the stability. I agree with Rodney when he talks about the stability and the longevity of a relationship. We've got to give our children hope. We got to give our families hope. And this is why the church is so important, to have different roles and leadership set. And so when, I guarantee you, when Justin sees you on that pulpit, he is just filled with pride to see you serve your children, Steve. I know how Aaron is with us. Those are my parents serving God's church. They're in leadership.
In the process of being in leadership, what happens is so many people get caught up in the leadership leadership perspective, and they forget about
your child.
Yeah, they forget about them.
You can't.
You don't demonstrate the nurturing, the sensitivity, the caring that they require. So I mean, that's what happened to a lot of us. We get caught up in being this person, and many times we get caught up to the point where we could be this person and give other people advice, and we forget about our own family.
And we just said that last night. We must continue to nurture our children.
Yeah.
I said, what good am I, Arthur and I, to family life, and we allow our family and we allow our children to go by the wayside, or if our family is whatever is in need. So I agree with that.
I think what has happened, we also see this, once there's truth been given, when we begin to provide truth to our young people, we've got to understand that the devil comes right behind it. So as you are ministering and as we are ministering, right behind that, he's like, go serve the people outside your church while she's in her room crying about something that you have not dealt with from 4 years ago, that she's upset with you, and that gatekeeper, you've serving, but you've left your home, and or I've left my home and I'm not dealing with an issue with my wife from years ago that we can't seem to get in the right direction, and then the family has the cloud over it, and then that same situation comes into our church. So it becomes a trickle-down effect.
Communication barriers. When we look at, the inability to communicate, and I think one of you guys was saying that we have to be transparent.
Yes.
And that's so important, especially when we're talking to our children. Let them know that we made mistakes, so they don't have this false pretense of who they think we really are. So it's a real consistent balance. So you guys have to be commended, because I know you both are constantly on the battlefield.
Yes, always.
And it's not something that's going away. No. We got to be innovative and come up with some new ideas consistently. And it takes a special drive, a special motivation for you to deal with these issues, and most importantly, to be consistent at it.
I want to say, consistency. I want to say that both these gentlemen are married. They have children. They have responsibilities. They have their individual businesses. They are very faithful to God's church. And they're here with us today on Making It Work, because they're trying to make it work.
Yes.
Closing comments in our last 2 minutes.
Go, Steve. Yeah.
Okay. We want to really focus on the gatekeeper and the curse breaker. It's time to build up men instead of tearing men down. We need to uplift, and we need to support men and their ideas and their drive and their passions and their ministry, because every man has a ministry. Every man is a minister, of this house. When Christ comes in the clouds of glory, who's he going to come to say, where is that treasure? Where is that investment? Where is that stewardship that I gave you, that to entrust to me? Joseph was made the chief steward of Egypt. Yes. Christ made us chief stewards of our homes and our communities and our churches.
And we must maintain that.
Exactly.
Rodney?
Sure. We are trying to continue to provide a need. And that's what all this is. When we talk about these things in our churches, there's a need that we have to first deal with. Once I provide the need, then I'm going to give you some word, and that means the word of God. So if you're hungry in our communities, around our churches, if you're hungry and you need a meal, we want to give you that. But once you come in, we've got to reach out, making ourselves available, extend ourselves a little bit. We've been kind of laying back in the spiritual cut for some time, and now there needs to be some dealings with our community and get the word of God out there.
Well, we definitely got a lot to cover in this.
Sure.
Well, listen, we hope that you have gained some information that's going to help you and pull your family together. Listen, I'm Dr. Kim Logan-Nowlin.
I'm Arthur Nolan.
And continue to making it work. God bless you.